How you doing, man? This is Chris Menzo here. I spent some time with the Asus ROG Ally so I can give it a very thorough review for you guys to know if this portable gaming PC device is really worth getting your hands on. I'm going to explain the negative sides of it first, very briefly, because I'll go a little bit deeper into it in the review, just for you guys out there who are interested in purchasing or Asus's ROG Ally. Also, if you're interested in purchasing this device, I do have the links right down below if that is what you're looking for. I gotta say, the negative parts are the updates are really slow as of for now. We don't know if Asus is gonna 100% back this just quite yet. They have been questionable when it comes to their warranty statuses in the past, as you know. The joysticks could be a little bit funky. The worst part, I gotta say personally, is the battery life itself. The battery life isn't the greatest. I'll explain a little bit further into it because the battery life could actually be not so great and it can actually be pretty great, and it all depends on what your uses are. So as you know, this is the Asus ROG Ally right here next to me on my left hand side or your right hand side, and you can see the dimensions of the device itself. As you can see, the dimensions, it's completely different, for example, next to a Nintendo Switch. Now, this is not going to compare the video or compare both devices, Nintendo Switch and the Asus ROG Ally, because they're two completely different animals. This is just for dimension purposes, so you can see the difference between the two dimensionally. The weight of the device is about 608 grams. It's a decent weight to have in your hands. Next to a Nintendo Switch, which barely weighs anything, is only at 398 grams in your hands. I'm going to go over the specifications of the Asus Ally, and also if you get bored of any type of parts of this video, please go down to the timestamps down below if you're looking for anything really specific. To get to the specifications really quick, because I will explain them really quick, it has a AMD Ryzen Zen 4 processor, which is the Z1 Extreme chipset. It's practically an APU as a CPU and a graphics practically built into it, made for more portability and efficiency use. It also has LPDDR5, which is 16 gigabytes, 1080p display where it can go up to 120 hertz. It comes with 512 gigabytes of PCI Express 4.0 2230 SSD. It has a memory card slot up on the top of the device. It comes with a 65-watt charger, and it also comes with a climate-friendly dock. How thoughtful of Asus. The Asus ROG Ally right here, I'm going to explain about the design and what I think of their whole process. As you take a closer look at the design, its grips are stippled out to where you can actually fit your nice adult hands onto a device such as this. It has just enough width there for you to grip comfortably, so that way you're able to enjoy longer gaming sessions. I've noticed that your hands do not get as fatigued when you hold the Asus ROG Ally. The D-pad is also nice and friendly to use. Joysticks, personally to me, they're a little bit wobbly. I will show you my gamepad tester, and you can see my joysticks after adjusting the dead zones. Now, some of you may have heard negative things about the Asus ROG Ally's joysticks. Luckily, mine didn't really have any true issues with it. As you can see, my dead zones are relatively low, between 8% to 10% on either side, and it's even lower after adjusting the dead zones. The triggers up on the top are Hall effect triggers, left button and right button, just like your standard Xbox controller, and you do have your standard Xbox layout when it comes to this. The only difference that they added to this device is you have a Windows button here, and you also have a command center button. One's for Armoury Crate, and one is to list out all the different options. The joysticks should have personally been Hall effect, in my opinion, instead of making the triggers Hall effect. It's just an odd choice to choose the triggers over it, but I guess not a lot of people play first person shooters. They're looking for more people that will make use of the actual triggers into the back of the controller. They are nice and solid. There has been no issues on my side, at least when it comes to the controller. Now, I do gotta say the joysticks do feel a little bit loose compared to my liking, so you do feel a little less resistance, similar to what you would feel with WinGPD's joysticks, or if you use a Nintendo Switch, their Joy-Cons kind of similar to something like that kind of feel, where it has kind of a loose wobbly feel. And because of how it is manufactured, it is also prone to drifting, but hopefully the aftermarket does become big for Asus ROG Ally. Why I do think this device is actually pretty amazing. Now, the OS itself, it's really fast for Windows 11 being on a smaller device. To me personally, when it came to Windows 11, especially even using it on a desktop with a powerful 4090 card and a 7950X 3D processor, Windows 11 just seems clunky and not as quick as Windows 10 in my personal opinion. Now, I do got to say this right off the rip, that Windows 11 so far had zero issues when heavy usage for almost 2 weeks. I had no bugs. I probably only had to use Task Manager once to exit something out, but I did not have to do a hard reboot or a hard shutdown for this device to start responding to me. For Asus ROG Ally, the speakers are quite magnificent. They are loud and it's pretty amazing. Except with the whole BIOS update when they did that, because when you go into silent operation and you try to go into a game, it sounds quite staticky, but that can be easily disabled. Command Center is also a really nice feature, really easy to use because it gives you a ton of options. Now, when you do go to the Command Center, it does give you options to adjust your performance level. You're also able to go into your keyboard without remembering the shortcuts if you don't remember it. And you can also go enter different game profiles if you set your controller to certain game profiles. It does also have AMD's RSR in there, and you can also take photos and also record while using the device, which is a really nice feature, so you can share with your friends. It is a full Windows 11 device, so you are able to contact your friends through Discord if you wanted to. Comparatively, you can play something like Halo Infinite, you won't really have issues. I do gotta say, it's a little bit more difficult to play on a handheld device because you are looking at smaller enemies, just say. I did try using an Xbox controller to connect to it, and I also tested the joysticks in Gamepad Tester with the Xbox controller, and it gave me a worse percentage than the actual Asus ROG Ally. Micro SD works excellent from what I see. I installed 128 gigabytes into the SD card slot, no issues. I did already fill up the 512 gigabytes, and it is a nice option that you're able to tear down this device pretty easily and upgrade the SSD with no issues. And it is a lot easier because you do have a cloud backup. In the future, when it comes to taking apart this device, if you have to, it is much easier to upgrade any component that you need to. It's almost like a mini PC that you're taking apart. Only things that you cannot really disassemble are the DDR5 memory sticks, because they are LP. Anytime you see LP DDR5, they are soldered into the board. They are not going to be detachable like a desktop or a laptop. Armoury Crate has been surprisingly refreshing and less problematic than the desktop version, but we will see if that continues in the future, because we all know how Armoury Crate operates. But surprisingly, on their handheld device, it was created pretty decently in my personal opinion. They do have the options there where you can actually adjust your dead zones for your joysticks, and you can adjust your triggers for its intensity. You can also control the controller vibration and have custom settings for your Asus ROG Ally. It does have its own game library that you can click into, and it has a update center. I gotta say, from actually using the device gaming wise, it has been excellent through gaming. I tested it through Diablo 4, Modern Warfare 2, Cyberpunk, and I've tested it on multiple other games, but on streaming mode. On streaming mode, I played games like Final Fantasy 15, Halo Infinite. I've also played Cyberpunk 2077 streaming, and I've played Modern Warfare 2 streaming. I will explain how much frames I'm getting from each one. It wields to a pretty impressive result, especially for such a small device. Now, don't get me twisted, don't get it wrong, it is not a desktop PC. Don't expect it to perform as if you had a 4090 with a 13900K processor in there. It's not going to go anywhere near that. Remember, this is a AMD Ryzen Zen 4 processor. Not saying anything bad of AMD, of course, but you are using an APU. An APU will be limited in its stance, but can perform pretty amazing. On Cyberpunk, it gives you a steady 40 to 45 frames per second. Using it on Diablo 4, you get a good 50 frames per second. And when you use it on Modern Warfare 2, you're getting about 92 frames per second consistently, and this is with all the games installed onto the device itself. Now, it depends on which mode you use. Asus ROG Ally does have 3 different modes in there. You have silent, you have performance, and you do have a turbo mode. When you use the device in gaming, for gaming specifically, I would highly suggest to use performance and turbo mode. It can change in the future where you can actually use a silence mode, but with its current BIOS, I would not recommend it, as it is kind of glitchy in other areas such as silent mode. I can say streaming wise, silent mode works excellent. You can actually game up to 100 frames per second and experience the full graphical details as you do from a desktop PC. So when I was playing Halo Infinite, I was actually getting my RTX 4090 graphics into my Asus Ally, which was really amazing. Also, when it came to Cyber 2077, the world was beautiful on the device. The screen is wonderful, and I gotta say, even with Modern Warfare 2, it was impressive, and Final Fantasy 15 was also amazing and spectacular. And this is also important to know, how the device feels when it does heat up. Now, when you are playing about, say, 30 minutes in on turbo mode, you will definitely feel your device get warmer, but not really by much. It gets a little bit warmer. It doesn't get extremely hot where it's hot to touch. It gets a little bit warmer than usual. Where it can actually feel pretty hot is where your fingers lay over, depending on how big your hands are. If your fingers are over the controller, such as this, such as the triggers up here, you can actually feel the heat coming out the vents here if you let your fingers reach over them. And the same goes with the other side as here. But all you have to do is readjust your fingers and you won't really feel the heat as much. It's actually pretty quiet when you're gaming on the device. It's pretty amazing. The best parts I gotta say about the devices, and what is important to know about the device, is to know your shortcuts when it comes to your keyboards, windows, or when it comes to your task manager, or when you want to open up new windows, and using the mouse, because everything relies on the back of the controller because of these macros. You simply just hit this macro button and you can press D-pad up and your keyboard will pop up, or you can hit this macro here and you can start using the mouse. It'll come up and R1 will actually be your left click. As you learn the macros of your Asus ROG Ally, it becomes really easy to use and it's not difficult at all to use. It almost becomes instinctual when you are using the device, as it will automatically just click in your head. It has given me zero issues when I've downloaded different programs, different applications. It has been really pleasant to use and actually pretty functional for being a Windows 11 device. The touchscreen is practically flawless. Every time you touch anything on the screen, it works excellent. When you do touch other items onto this, like if you're in a game and you use the screen to try to touch something, it's not going to really work as well. Asus really gave it a nice touch when it came with the RGB rings right around the device, which gives it a nice look. But of course, you can imagine that it's not going to really help the battery as much if you do have them on. Now let's get straight to the battery usage. I know you guys want to know exactly how well does it perform when it is in battery mode. And I gotta tell you, in turbo mode, you can get probably an hour. And this was with Diablo 4 installed into the actual device and using it. It doesn't sound that great, but this is all with stock settings and not adjusted. The only thing I adjusted was the brightness and brought it down to about 22%, which is still pretty bright for this device. Now in performance mode, I tested it on Cyberpunk 2077, got about an hour and 35 minutes of usage, plus 10 minutes of standby time when I was not using the device, and I actually put the device to sleep temporarily while I ate a snack. When it came to cloud gaming, I got up to 3 hours and 45 minutes, close to 4 hours of usage, which I was personally really impressed with. You're getting 120 hertz out the device, and you're getting the, say, a RTX 4090's graphics in there without any effect of heavy battery drain, because you're not really using the APU's graphics as much. Because of the battery life, you do have other options when it comes down to it. Now, personally, what I found for me, I've used Anker's Powerbank, the 20,000 milliamp power bank, which has a quick charge in there via USB-C. That has been great for the device, so if I ran low on battery, I had no problems charging it. And even some power banks can actually allow you to still play in turbo mode while gaming. If you do play on turbo mode, I tested this at 5%. If it's at 5%, you're Asus ROG Ally, and you let the device charge while you're gaming, it does take quite a bit of time. I gamed on it for almost 3 hours and 42 minutes. This is through the actual hardware itself. When I was playing Diablo 4, it will take about 3 hours and 42 minutes from 5% to 100% charge if you're playing with your Asus ROG Ally next to the wall to let it charge up. Now, it's going to more than likely be the same with the power bank as well if it can produce as much power. So don't expect it to really charge really fast while you're gaming. Now, if you're letting it charge on its own on standby mode, that's when you see the results of really fast charging. It'll go from 20% to 70% in no time. What I personally would like to tell Asus is please listen to all your customers out there when they do give you some suggestions. I would highly suggest Asus to go with Hall effect joysticks next time. I don't think it was a great idea they went with Hall effect triggers. Don't get me wrong, it is a really nice feature. We would like to see more Hall effect joysticks, because that is something that we would have to worry about more than the actual triggers themselves, as it is easier to maintain. I hope Asus is also consistent when it comes to updating the device, whether it comes to BIOS updates or firmware updates. Another thing that really bugs me is when you do boot into BIOS mode, which is actually really easy to boot into BIOS mode into the Asus ROG Ally. When you do, your micro SD does not come up, so you cannot install BIOS firmware via micro SD if you wanted to. Instead, you're better off attempting to update the firmware or downgrade the firmware, whichever you choose, through a USB-C dock. If you use a USB-C dock, then it will allow you to be able to update the BIOS. Your dock also has to allow power, so you are able to get into the BIOS for the device for it to be able to upgrade or downgrade. The price for AMD's Z1 Extreme model is $699.99 USD. I gotta say, personally, it is worth getting if you do play on the go often. If you travel for your work and you enter planes pretty often where you get bored while you're sitting on the plane, you can play your Asus ROG Ally with no problems, and it's really fun and easy to use. If you are a person that has to wait a lot in the day, this is also great to keep you entertained by. Is it pretty innovative of Asus to come out with this device? Can it beat Steam Deck? I gotta say, this is the cusp of handheld PC gaming. Now, handheld PC gaming has always been around for a little while. This is a breakthrough device that can really help push and really innovate for the future. I can see how much more it can improve and how much more focus can actually go into it. I can see more modifications in the future. I can see all sorts of accessories. The ideas are endless when it does come down to it. It's practically bringing PC gaming to a whole different level. Now, this is really a start of something good in my personal opinion, but I can tell you right now, if you're expecting a desktop PC, this is not a desktop PC. I don't care, even if you hook up the RTX 4090 to it, it's still not going to produce that type of level because you're not hooking it up to a dedicated motherboard and a dedicated processor. But I can say the performance is quite amazing for a handheld PC device. If you have a lot of standby time in your day, this is a great device to keep with you, and it will keep you entertained hours on end. Now, if you find yourself too busy throughout the day and you rather go home to play on your desktop PC or on your home console, then this device won't really fit your needs. You're gonna find yourself having this sit on the side because you're gonna rather just hop on your desktop to play your games instead. So fam guys, I hope you found this content very useful. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in purchasing a Asus ROG Ally, I do have the link in the description box down below. And also, I am not sponsored in this video for Asus's ROG Ally. This is what I personally think, and I hope Asus will stand by their product. You have less problems when it comes to issues, if there's any issues with the device. If you know anybody else who is interested in Asus ROG Ally, make sure you share this video with them. Also, if you're not part of the Big One fan band, make sure you go down and hit the subscribe button for more. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. And for all the newest updates, make sure you follow my Twitter handle right here, as it is the same as my TikTok and IG as well. Fam guys, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions at all, feel free to ask. I'll be here to help you answer those questions.